Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the MMA Sucka Podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by the editor-in-chief at MMA Sucka, Frazer Krohn. Frazer, how you doing today, sir?
I'm all good, mate. Part 1 of 2. You know, this week we're treating you to 2 podcasts because it's a colossal fight week for UFC 285, and we didn't want to sort of, just kind of shove it in at the end. There's a lot happened this past weekend with, obviously we've got Jake Paul, Tommy Fury to discuss. We've got the UFC, we've got Bellator, we've got ONE, we've got KSW. We didn't want to kind of rush through all of these and then have to rush through the UFC 285 preview. So, we'll drop this today, and then a little bit later on in the week, we'll record a UFC 285 preview. Going really in depth on the main event, the co-main. It's a solid card. We're top to bottom. It's a really good card, and we didn't want to rush through it. So, we'll be getting sort of part 1 of the podcast, sort of a review of the weekend. And then we'll jump into part 2 a little bit later on in the week, a preview for 285, because it's set to be it's the biggest and best fight card of the year so far, and we didn't want to rush through it. So, this will be a review show, and then we'll jump into a preview later on in the week.
Absolutely. UFC 285 has big fight feels, and we didn't want to miss out, so we're dedicating an entire episode to it. This is the weekend rundown episode. Tommy Fury, UFC, we got Bellator, we got ONE Championship, we even have a little bit of KSW talk, all that good stuff. So we go from the absolute most casual to the absolute most hardcore. I'm going to end on Lumpini Stadium, so we're a hardcore show. But let's start with, we won't bury the lead, Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. I think before we jump into the fight, I do want to comment, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit. Jake Paul is a mid-tier boxer. Tommy Fury is also a mid-tier boxer. This had blockbuster feels to it. Given the skill of these opponents to the blockbuster event, Jake Paul might be one of the best boxing promoters of the last 10 years. Frazer, stop me when I'm wrong here. Am I talking crap?
We shouldn't have had this much hype around a fight between
That's right.
two fighters that were, one was 6-0 and one was 8-0 heading into the fight.
Over questionable competitions against ranked boxers combined, they're 0-0.
Exactly. And that shouldn't have happened. It was all over, the sort of social medias. It was all over the your Twitter, your Instagram. It was all over the everyday news. BBC Sport were covering the fight.
I know.
Talk Sport were commenting on it. Legitimate boxing outlets were covering this. Legitimate MMA outlets, despite the fact that none of these guys are MMA fighters. Yes, Jake Paul is now associated with the PFL, but this got more coverage than Floyd Mayweather's exhibition.
Yes,
that happened on Saturday night. Little spoiler for you guys: Floyd Mayweather fought on Saturday night. I didn't really. I knew it was happening because I'm interested in a few of the fighters that were on that card.
Yeah,
but I say one fighter, and Floyd Mayweather. But that got more. Floyd Mayweather's 50-0, multiple, arguably one of the best, if not the best boxer we've ever seen.
Yep.
Barely got any hyping. First time ever fighting in the UK. This is in Saudi Arabia. Gets hundreds more eyes to it, millions more eyes to it, I'd argue. I was I had no interest in going to watch Floyd Mayweather's fight, but just out of interest I looked at the O2.
Yeah,
hundreds and thousands of seats still available for purchase.
That's rough.
I imagine you'd struggle to get a ticket in Saudi Arabia, and it brought the stars out. It brought Cristiano Ronaldo was there.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tyson was there. Logan Paul was there.
Mike Tyson was ringside for it. Yeah,
exactly. This is bringing out, and I completely agree. Is fight sports is about self promotion, but Jake Paul carried this promotion alongside carrying Tommy. He was self promoting through MVP, but he also carried Tommy Fury's side of the promotion because Tommy didn't. He didn't attend the press conference. He didn't do an awful lot to promote the fight. And yet still came away, spoiler alert, he came away with a victory of a split decision.
Yeah. It was, aside from the promotion was stellar. Like, that is an A+ promotion. You have to give compliments where compliments is due. Jake Paul is a person who was well hated when he got in this industry. And I think he still sells fights based on that, but he's earned a lot of respect with wins over Anderson Silva. You got a knockdown on Anderson Silva, even at this age. That's insane. But yeah, split decision loss to Tommy Fury. Not an overly impressive or exciting fight by any means. It was a fight, certainly. Like Tommy Fury, you can see that sometimes he throws a lot of punches and some of them land. Jake Paul has his is it like ducking jab or ducking right cross, which sometimes lands very well. Like he has a few tricks up his sleeve. And then they clinched a lot of the fight. What did you see in the fight? How did you see it?
They clinched a lot. They both got points taken off, which the point taken off for Paul, I don't agree with. He hit Tommy Fury in the back of the head, but that was in the 5th, and at the end of the 4th, Tommy landed heavily on the back of the head of Jake Paul.
Yeah.
So there was no hard warning, but I don't think the referee. I think the referee's got to kind of accept that he's not in there with Muhammad Ali versus
George Foreman.
Joe Frazer, George Foreman. He's not in there with Klitschko and Fury. He's not in there with Alexander Usyk, who's got these massive amateur. But he's in there with two essentially white collar guys. These are it's influencer boxing at a higher level than what we've seen. So let's not. You don't need to be taking points. You don't need to be raining down the rules. Yes, it's a professional boxing bout on paper, but let's be honest here, it's not. Jake Paul's had 3 years training, so to go the distance with someone who's supposedly been boxing for his entire life.
Tommy Fury's not good for someone who's trained boxing his entire life. Given that reference, he's not that good. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, I completely agree. Jake Paul's been training for 3 years.
Yeah.
Tommy Fury's been training his entire life. Tommy Fury should have boxed the head off him for the full 8 rounds, and he should have finished him. If he didn't finish him, he should have boxed the head off him. He didn't. It was a close fight. It was close, and it's a hell of a lot closer than it should have been.
And I love Tommy Fury at the end. He got some belt put on him. What the hell belt was that? And then he celebrated like he won a gold medal in the Olympics.
Exactly. And there's a rematch clause on Jake Paul's side. So don't be surprised to see them two in a ring again. But, props to Jake Paul to be scoring a knockdown, to be going 8 rounds with a guy who's been boxing his entire life. He's been boxing for 3 years.
Yeah.
With that being said, Jake Paul has invested in himself in these past 3 years. I'd still expect, he's not quote unquote got a job. He's not working a 9 to 5. He can be a boxer for 3 years straight, every single day, all day. He can train. He's got enough money to train like Tyson Fury, to train like Anthony Joshua, to train like Alexander Usyk.
Yes. He
should be better. Yes, he's only been training for 3 years, but it's not like he's a YouTube star, but it's not like he's an athlete before. He was an athlete in college, a college wrestler.
Yeah.
So he's got that level of athleticism prior to learning how to box. Then he's learning how to box essentially day in, day out for the past 3 years. He should be better. If I took up boxing and in 3 years I won't be as good as Jake Paul.
That's right.
I've got a 9 to 5 job to go to. I cannot just give my entire life to this sport, whereas he can. He hasn't got a 9 to 5 job. I've got to be in this. Yes, he's got other. He's got the PFL stuff, and he's got the MVP, and he's got the. He's got other sort of avenues. But in my opinion, he still should be better than he is.
Well, and like his brother's that model of like he's an athletic guy who's boxing for 3 years and just doesn't really develop. That's a normal person. That's actually quite typical. Jake actually is not bad. Of like he has picked up a few tricks. Only in 3 years he's not a bad boxer in any way, right?
Yeah, for sure. But he's got a lot of flaws. That overhand right, if it doesn't land, as we saw last night, he's struggling.
Yeah.
He moved he's quite a big guy. He moves too much. He's not just slipping narrowly off a shot. He's getting well out of the way, which is fine. But then you're not in range to hit the counter.
Right. Yeah. Like we've talked about. You want to be an inch. You want to just head movement, just an inch away from you.
I mean, how many times have we seen the Conor? I know I don't want to bring it around to Conor McGregor, but he's one of the best movers and in the sport.
Yes.
How many times have we seen his fight against Eddie Alvarez, when you see Eddie Alvarez swing and it's just in front of McGregor's nose?
That's right.
And therefore McGregor can just shift his weight onto his lead leg, bang, hit the counter down the pipe and knock him out.
Yeah.
I think Jake Paul needs to work a lot on his defensive work. Not that he gets hit a lot, but it is that sort of defensive work of just, like you say, just slipping, like, rather than slipping an inch, you want to be slipping a centimeter, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you only slip a centimeter, all your weight's still on that front foot where you can then counter and bang down the pipe.
Yep.
He just, in my opinion, he was moving a lot. He's big, and he's a big guy, and he did sort of. There was rounds where both guys had kind of rounds off, in my opinion. If this was a 12 round, I'm glad that this was only an 8-round fight, because a 12-round fight might have been a tough watch. But he was ducking underneath, but massively ducking underneath, but then not coming back with any counters. If you're going to duck underneath, throw a couple of hooks to the body, come back with the uppercut to the body. I can't disrespect Jake Paul, because what he's done for the sport, for Amanda Serrano especially, and sort of, he was co-promoting the first women's headliner at MSG between Serrano and Katie Taylor. He's got all the guys on the card. He's got these guys at a fight. Ilunga Makabu and Badu Jack. We were talking off air. That probably got more eyes on it than it probably would have if it was just on a a standalone card, because people bought the pay-per-view to watch Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I can't disrespect him, but and I don't think the Jake Paul experiment in professional boxing is done. I think he's still got a boxing career, but he should be shifting his way away from the professional boxing and towards the kind of influencer misfits style of pro boxing, kind of, entertainment, WWE kind of,
yeah.
It's the sort of the KSI fight that you're looking at next. It's maybe the Tommy Fury rematch. It's, the guy that fought Mayweather this weekend, Aaron Chalmers, said that he'd be interested in a boxing match with Jake.
Of course he would. Yeah. So am I, Aaron Chalmers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. I think but for Jake now, I think, with this stuff going on in the PFL, if he goes down, if Tommy Fury was a knockout puncher, I think Jake Paul might have been in trouble.
Yeah, he got hit a couple of times. Yeah,
he's not, obviously, as we know. He hasn't got that knockout power, despite the fact his nickname's TNT, which is kind of ironic. But it is what it is. But let's push Jake Paul towards he's the money fight in boxing at the moment. Canelo and him are the money fights. Let's shelf the talk that he was ever going to fight Canelo, because that's, come on. And then let's bring forward the more sort of Jake Paul falling into the influencer boxing, fighting your KSIs and your kind of guys in that realm. Vitor Belfort's is kind of an influencer boxer at this point.
Yeah, but Vitor is not a bad fight. I think Vitor has size on him, but I think Vitor is a fair fight given his level and what's next for him, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it is the Tyron Woodleys, the Anderson Silvers, the KSIs for me that Jake should be looking to box next, because it's, let's be honest, he signed for the PFL. You can't sign for the PFL and then never fight for the PFL. He signed as a fighter for the PFL. So he has to work on his ground game. He has got that wrestling base, but he has to work on his wrestling. It's completely different, college wrestling and wrestling for MMA. Yeah. You've got a cage for a start. He's got to work on his kicks. He's got to work on his hands, because he's a guy that clinches a lot in boxing to avoid strikes. Well, if you clinch in MMA, someone's just going to throw a knee up the middle, Jordan Levitt style. He's got a lot to work on to transition into MMA. So maybe shelf the professional boxing, trying to get better at boxing. And, your hands will come. If you're training in 4-ounce gloves, your hands will, your defensive work will have to be there, which will benefit him in the boxing if he goes on to fight a KSI or someone of that ilk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add on this one. I think that's probably ample time of breaking down Jake Paul. We've actually come around. You can probably watch each episode of us laughing at Jake Paul to being like, okay, we'll talk about Jake Paul, to now taking it quite seriously of breaking him down, which is, that's his growth. I did like that Badu Jack again saved the card. He was the co-main event for the Mayweather McGregor fight, and that was a bunch of decisions and it was kind of boring. And then Badu Jack got a knockout and saved the card. It was amazing again. This one as well. It was a kind of a decision that I don't think anyone watched. And then Badou Jack got a knockout in the 12th round, captured the WBC cruiserweight title. Man, Badou Jack, when he wins, he makes it worth it. Like he doesn't win all the time, but when he shows up, he wins on major events. This guy's got some good co-main events, right?
Exactly. And he seems to be a guy that is, I know that he sort of, I don't know if he trains with Jake Paul, but I know he's around Jake Paul a lot. And he seems to be a guy that, for whatever reason, has kind of found himself as the co-main event or in the undercard of the sort of, Mayweather McGregor really was like the first ever influencer card to a degree, where you've got that crossover between, people aren't, in a few weeks we've got, Caleb Plant and Benavidez, I think, a fight. That's a massive fight. It's as big a fight, in my opinion, as Badou Jack versus Ilunga Makabu.
Yeah.
You won't get the eyes on it.
No.
Because these are two boxers, professional boxers, despite the fact they've got a great rivalry at the moment and there's some proper, behind the scenes stuff going on between them. You won't get the eyes on it.
Yeah.
Ilunga Makabu versus Badou Jack probably got more eyes on it in this fight than they would have the entire, if they would have had a standalone show. And like you say, he's the guy that comes in that you don't expect. I expected Ilunga Makabu, 20. I think he had 25 knockouts in 29 fights, and his last game against Tony Bellew, and he knocked Tony Bellew down in that fight. For me, I thought Makabu would just go in there and steamroll him, but Badou Jack, does what Badou Jack does: 2 knockdowns, TKO in the 12th round, lifts the WBC title. And unfortunately for Makabu, he's not quite the guy that is a ticket seller, but Badou Jack can be now because he's got a little bit of a crossover fan base. He'll probably be on the next Jake Paul card, defending his WBC title against no one that anyone's ever heard of, and he'll get a big finish. Yes. And he's a 3-weight world champion now, so fair play to him. It's not what I expected at all, but I'm here for it.
Absolutely. I think it's enough time for Jake Paul. Let's move on to the UFC card, which does get second billing on the show because the UFC is just filling time on ESPN at this point. And the event had some highlights, but in terms of name value, oh my. In terms of title implications, oh my, this is filling time. This is an LFA card. You know what I mean? Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann was out due to, Nikita Krylov fell ill and had to pull out from the main event. So we got a Brendan Allen versus André Muniz. Now we did talk about this is actually pretty good, like outside the middleweight top 15, pretty good fight. Pretty good. Brendan Allen got a submission rear naked choke in round 3. Now it probably moves into the top 15, or at least very close to it. Brendan Allen probably really does move up in this case. What'd you make of the fight? What'd you see in it? What's next for these guys?
I mean, I certainly didn't see a submission on. If someone was telling me there'd be a submission, I'm thinking, Muniz is going to catch on with something. Yeah. But for André Muniz, I don't quite. It was just disappointing from a Muniz. I just don't think that he was very good on the night, and I don't think for a second that the late notice main event kind of affected him, because it wasn't a late notice main event. The only difference was that they were the last fight on the card.
Yeah, they were. That's it.
That's the only difference. They weren't suddenly expected to go 5 rounds. They were being paid a little bit more, I imagine, for being a main event slot.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't even know if that's true.
Well, you'd hope that they were paid a little bit more, I should say. This is Dana White's UFC. Yeah. But, like I say, it's not like, they weren't suddenly expected to go 5 rounds. They weren't delayed by, an hour or 2 because they were the main event. They weren't, nothing changed for these guys. I think maybe the only thing that changed is they were brought into the middle before the fight.
Yeah. I know.
That's it. That is it. And Muniz, if you look at his other fights, against Jacare, he scored 2 takedowns. Against Eric Anders, he scored 2 takedowns. Both of these obviously led to the submission. Against Uriah Hall, 4 takedowns. That was a boring fight, but 4 takedowns, 10 minutes control time. Right. He didn't land a single takedown on Brendan Allen. He had 15 seconds of control time. And he seemed the finishing sequence from Brendan Allen, it seemed like Muniz didn't know what to do, whether he was just extremely tired or what. I don't know whether he was. I can't imagine that he was worried about Brendan Allen's ground game because he went to the ground with Jacare Souza. No disrespect to Brendan Allen, but Jacare is a far better jiu-jitsu sort of phenom than Brendan Allen. So he didn't even look to take him down. He looked to strike. Maybe he was, looking to strike and add another string to his bow. But it kind of blew up in his face because Muniz, he's not young. I know, he's 33 now. Not a big name. He's a kind of king of the Who Needs Him club. It's difficult for Muniz because he's a tough fight, but there's not an awful lot of upside in beating him. He's ranked number 11 now, middleweight. Obviously, that'll change. I imagine he'll drop a few. We could even be looking at Darren Till dropping out of the middleweight rankings for the first time in a number of years. But Brendan Allen will obviously. Yeah, for sure. Brendan Allen will obviously take his place. But then you look at Muniz, he's not fighting up next. And we mentioned this last week. Why is he fighting Brendan Allen? Because there's no upside to fighting Brendan Allen.
Yeah.
We said, even if he wins, does he overtake Dricus du Plessis? No, because Dricus du Plessis is fighting up. He's fighting number 5 next.
Yeah.
And it's kind of backfired and blown up in his face. But, it is what it is. Main event slot for the guys. Like I say, I don't think that affected them massively. I can't
mentally. It was so last minute. It was just a few hours before the event went to air.
Yeah, I think it's just before the main card, or even just before the Tatiana Suarez fight. So it wasn't.
Yeah.
These guys didn't. It hasn't sort of played on their mind all even. I'm the main event in a UFC card, and the main event because, like I say, it was 3 rounds. They were prepared for 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Nothing else really changed in my opinion, other than they were the last fight on the card and there wasn't any fights after them. But, it is what it is for André Muniz.
Brendan Allen is a little bit of a mystery. It's a weird thing that he is 10 wins in the UFC with notable wins over guys like Sam Alvey and Kevin Holland. And now he's on a bit of a win streak here. I still feel like I don't have much of an assessment on where his skills are. You know what I mean? I just don't know where his skills are. And I know that's why you have to fight. But quite often you get an impression of a guy fairly quick of oh, wow, he's so good and he should be ranked higher, or he's not that good and he should be ranked lower. I have no clue with Brendan Allen. There's no data coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you make of his career? What's next for him?
This is what I was just going to ask you, actually, throw it back at you. So what's next for him? Because it's tough. I think Chris Curtis is fighting Calvin Gastelum next week on 285. Yeah. So the Chris Curtis rematch would probably make sense.
Sure.
But he's already got a fight. Darren Till.
I guess.
Then Darren Till, in my opinion, needs to fight further down than Brendan Allen if they're going to still invest in Darren Till.
What if we just put the middleweight, the lame middleweight main events all together and he fights Sean Strickland?
I mean, he called out Sean Strickland after, Sean Strickland finished him. Just having a look back in 2020, so that's potentially. But Sean Strickland's coming. He's he's the one. 7.
Sean Strickland can't knock out anybody except for Brendan Allen.
Exactly. Sean Strickland's coming off a win as well, isn't he? Against.
Man, he was the late replacement for that fight.
Oh, Imanov. God.
This is the thing. Middleweight, just cut the division. This is enough. Exactly. Enough is enough.
There's enough entertaining fights, but none of them involve anyone outside the top 3. I want to just see Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker. Probably just stick Paulo Costa in there just for a joke. Just have them fight every week. But maybe Jack Hermanson. I mean. Yeah, maybe Jack Hermanson.
I at this point, very clearly, at this point, just cut. We should go back to the WEC, just flyweight up to lightweight, maybe welterweight sometimes. That's all you need. If you have a bantamweight main event every week, it's good, and we know what's going. It's some tremendous stuff. But these middleweights, man, enough is enough. Cut this division.
Yeah, they're just not. I mean, don't get me wrong. The 287 main event between Adesanya and Pereira excites me. That's in April. I've got March to suffer through watching Roman Dolodzi fight Marvin Vettori on the prelims of UFC London.
Oh
It's tough.
man,
These things
it's
are tough.
tough. But we had the return. Let's get to what we actually want to talk about. The return of Tatiana
Augusta
Suarez.
Sakai.
Okay, man, get the hell out of here.
Oh,
we're
no, I
we're
didn't
cutting
even-
that division. Tatiana Suarez made her comeback after almost 4 years or 3 years away, almost 4 years away or something like that. Coming back in a higher division. And she was kind of the like female Habib, just a relentless wrestler, unyielding pace. Now this time, years away, she's either a little bit rusty or she's a little bit older, and I don't entirely know. But she came back at flyweight. She said she is going back to strawweight in the future. And regardless, even if she has lost a step due to injury, time out of the cage, she's still probably going to be a contender within this year. She's still so good and still so far ahead. What did you make of the Tatiana Suarez comeback?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one because, like you say, it does appear that she's lost a step. Maybe lost that yard of sort of pace, and yet she dominated the fight. Like
I know, yeah.
Just looking at control time, almost 4.5 minutes control time in the first round, and then she finished it in the second round.
But it's a matter of, is it cage rust or is it age? And we don't
exactly. Yeah, exactly. 4 years away is a crazy amount of time, and for a fact that she hasn't been training day in day out for those 4 years because of injuries, because of setbacks, because of illness or whatever. She hasn't, and she's up at flyweight, so maybe she's not used to having that extra 10 pounds on her frame. Obviously she cuts weight down to strawweight, but it's a whole different game walking around at say 125 and having to fight at 125. She's got that extra 10 pound on her frame. Maybe maybe Montala De La Rosa was just stronger than she's used to. Of course she's going to be stronger than she's used to. She was fighting down at strawweight and fighting 115 pound girls. Now she's fighting Montala De La Rosa, who's probably in there 132, 135 on
Absolutely.
fight night. So that I think does play a factor. I think it was a good decision to come back at flyweight, get that first kind of cut out the way, as it were, get a feel for flyweight. Mm-hmm. And then, I do want to see her back down at strawweight just to see if that was the factor, as it were. But
yeah,
I mean, how good is she? She's got, like you say, I even if she has either got, is it ring rust or is it just that she's sort of got old slightly overnight? I still think, I agree with you that she's still going to be a contender because her wrestling is so far ahead of everyone else in the division.
Yep.
It's like Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu. If she gets it to the floor, she's so much better than everyone else. Her problem is getting it to the floor. With Tatiana Suarez, she's got no problem getting it to the floor.
Absolutely.
That finish is arguably big. Obviously she snapped the neck and then pull guard into the guillotine. I think Montella De La Rosa in the back of her head when she had that snap down, she was focused on making sure her hips were back and she kind of exposed her head, but she was making sure her hips were back because she's fighting Tatiana Suarez.
Yeah. Who's
got insane takedown ability and insane, and an insane ability to just, control you once she takes you down. So I'm getting my hips back and I'm avoiding the takedown. Oh wait, I've already got my neck snatch. It's a really, really good finish, a really clever finish.
Yeah.
But there's also another conversation this week for the second week in a row about women's clothing in MMA and the kit. Obviously we had Jessica Andrade say that she was kind of put off, and the same with Montella De La Rosa. I don't know if she's come out and said that she's been put off, but I saw.
Yeah, she did. She said like that was a malfunction. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I saw, the People's MMA sort of say like, look, thoughts on this, and there definitely needs to be something done because we can't, it's yes, the option's there to wear a t-shirt, but not all women want not all women want to wear a t-shirt.
Yeah.
So to kind of, in my opinion, it's a fairly simple fix as to just make believe it or not, I've never worn a sports bra, but I imagine that if you just kind of lift rather than it being sort of cut, if you kind of just bring that up to collarbone below, just slightly below the neck, that avoids what happened to Montana this weekend. And then I don't know about underneath, whether you make it slightly tighter or whether you make it longer. I'm not really sure what the fix is, but that there will be a fix out there. I'm not a sports bra enthusiast, believe it or not. I do not know what the crack is.
But these are professional athletes, and they deserve respect to be treated as such. If they're having trouble with their wardrobe, like if this was the WNBA or like the Olympics, we wouldn't be talking about like, oh, a boob might pop out. Dude, treat these like professional athletes. Get them the right clothing they need.
And let's remember that these girls are in a fight. Montana De La Rota is in a fight.
Yeah.
She's focused on stopping a takedown from one of the best wrestler, arguably in the division, arguably the best female wrestler that we've seen in the UFC. Then she's also in the back of her mind thinking, I can feel my top being pulled down unintentionally. Yeah. You know, we're not trying to say that Tatiana Suarez was doing it as like a distraction technique, but you've got to remember these women are in a fight. They're not switched on to. They should be switched on. Sorry, to. I need to get my hands here. I need to hand fight. I need to get this underhook. I need to, leverage Suarez. But instead, I imagine she's thinking in the back of her mind, this is the distraction that these women talk about. That okay, I'm going to be exposed if this carries on in this manner. By which time she's probably then just been dumped on her ass, and she's kind of under Tatiana Suarez. For me, there's got to be a fix, because it's rare that we ever see a fight night where, even if it's not a malfunction like we've seen in the past 2 weeks, but you see the women kind of break distance, pull their top up, and then carry on. Let's address this, because it is an issue.
Yes.
And it's becoming an issue. Even, let's say next week in the co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko has something happen to her. So, in the same sort of situation, and then Alexa Grasso lands a high kick and knocks her out while she's pulling her top up. This is a very reasonable thing that could happen. Let's address it before it becomes a really, really mainstream issue, because it is an issue at the moment, and we don't want it to become even more of an issue going forward.
The UFC brought in different clothing brands like Reebok initially, and now Venom, and they said it would help with professionalism and cleaning up the look of the sport. Well, then treat it very professionally. Like, why are we still having this problem of like, this is like these clothing brands stuff doesn't work? And I think people complained about Reebok at first, that it just doesn't fit properly. I think the women went through the same problems with Reebok years ago, and Reebok did eventually resolve it. But like, if you're going to clean up the look and be more professional, then do it. Don't do it halfway. You know what I mean? Like, let's fix it. Anyway, exactly. If you've been away for 4 years, you might need to come back some Athletic Greens. That's right. We'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor at Athletic Greens. Their signature AG1 is perfect for daily nutrients and gut health support. AG1 solves two of the most important health needs: the nutrients your body needs each day and the foundation of long-term gut health. Together, they fuel a whole body health, impacting everything from sleep, digestion, energy, mood, immunity, to the health of your hair, skin, and nails. Especially if you're a heavyweight, you would probably need something like that. Do you have anything to throw on the heavyweight matchups on this fight night card?
I do not.
No, me neither.
No. Augusta Sakai got a win again. There was some Jasmine Justovicius. I'm glad that she got back in the win column and did so in pretty dominant fashion.
Love Jasmine. She's cool as hell. Jasmine's great.
Exactly, yeah. And she, make sure you follow her on social media as well, because she's a fun. She's a fun follow to. She doesn't take it too seriously. We got Trevor Peak.
She's also that's a lot of people don't realize, like, that's the Canadian accent, and like she grew up in I forget where, it's like Southern Ontario, but that's not a very common accent that she has. But if you want to hear a genuine Canadian accent, it's Jasmine. She has it.
And moving on, I think her teammate Mike Mallott looks like a talent. Obviously knocked out Mickey Gall in his debut. Now he gets the first round arm triangle submission. Certainly want to keep an eye on at 170, because he strikes me as one of these guys that's just going to keep on getting wins. For me, I kind of want Mallott to get a couple more rounds under his belt. He's 2-0 in the UFC and has a win on the Contender Series. He hasn't got out of the first round since he had a draw when he was in Bellator in 2015. I want to see him a couple more rounds.
Keep your eye on him.
first round submission in CFFC back in 2020, 2021, obviously on the Contender Series, 39-second submission. Knockout Mickey Gall in the first round, now a submission in the first round. I want to see him have more rounds, but at the same time, if he keeps on doing and ending people like this, I'm here for it. And thoughts on Trevor Peek's hammer fists against
what do you think? What do you make of this?
I mean, it worked. I don't think it's for any up and coming MMA stars. I probably wouldn't copy the technique personally. He had his opponent up against. I mean, maybe it's a good technique because the opponent isn't expecting shots to be coming sort of. They're expecting straight shots or hooks from out wide. They're not expecting shots to be coming straight down. But Gonzalez, it was a TKO, it was a knockout. And Trevor Peek got it. So we can't. It's a technique that clearly works, and he's got. Just looking down his record now, he's 9-0. 8 finishes and a no contest.
It must just be jarring to not expect a punch there, but I don't think there's a ton of hitting on the top of the head. That's fine. You could probably take that strike all day. I think it's just a surprise for your opponent to be like, what the hell?
Yeah, especially when he's been landed on. He is sort of a bit disorientated, and then he's sort of getting hammer fisted in the face. I'm sure he doesn't quite know what's going on, but I'm here for if it works, it works, and it's a legal strike. So Trevor Peek, I'm holding my hands up to you. It's not a strike that I had, in the back of my mind if someone would throw. But maybe we'll see John Jones knock Cyril Gane out with a hammer fist next week. We don't know. He's a fan of the axe kick. Maybe he's now gonna get a standing hammer fist knockout. Let's wait till next week to find out.
Speaking of knockout, Jordan Levitt finally knocked someone out and surprised himself on the journey. He surprised himself that he could knock someone out, and then he threw up his feet on the post-fight press conference. This guy, he's a little bit aware of the self-promotion. He really put his foot on the gas after getting a knockout. He's not bad. He's doing all the right moves, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you say the right moves. He's a very smooth mover. He's dropping the splits. He's doing the dirty dancing thing. I'm here for it. He had the stuff with Paddy Pimblett when Paddy just wanted to make a bit of a mockery out of him. He did get teabagged. He lost against Paddy Pimblett, but he's bounced back now. And now, like he said, he's not the guy that lost to Paddy Pimblett anymore. He's the guy that's got the knockout. He's the guy that's got the one of only, I think they said on the broadcast, one of only 6 or 8 slam knockouts in the UFC.
Yeah,
he's now got a legitimate knockout. Jordan Levitt, I like him. Like you say, self promotion. How many times have you already seen that? He's wearing his grandfather's suit with his sort of high heeled shoes up on the desk. Yeah, I'm here for it. Do it, double down on it. Really go in on that sort of persona, because that's who he is. He's not. This isn't an act for Jordan Levitt, in my opinion. This is who he is. He's an eccentric guy who, is clearly sort of, a sublime talent. And he doesn't have to put on the hard man, I'm an MMA fighter, I'm a cage fighter. He doesn't have to do that, which I think is great. And, he's
like a theater kid. You know what I mean? Exactly. He's a drama student.
It's just, exactly. It's just, he's a fun character to have around, and he's a great talent. And now, off the back of the Paddy Pimblett fight, I think it's done good. It's done good for him, because he's now a bigger name than he was. Jordan Levitt, the guy that lost to Paddy Pimblett. Now he's the Jordan Levitt, the guy that wears the eccentric clothing. Now he's Jordan Levitt, the guy that gets knockouts. It's good for him. I'm happy for him. I like him, and I'm here for the high heel shoes and the big, over the top suit. More of that, please. Next fight week for Jordan Levitt. Thank you.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. Now, how about our future superstar, the MMA future megastar, Nurullo Aliev? You've seen the numbers on his post-fight interviews. This guy is selling out stadiums in Tajikistan while fighting at 3 a.m. on a TV screen in the country. Man, this guy, does he have the potential? We talk about sometimes Conor or someone like that just puts their staple on a nation and brings that nation right into the MMA sphere. We're seeing that with Tajikistan now. does he have the potential to really make a name in MMA? He's currently undefeated at 9-0. Nice young kid, only 23 years old. I think he was a champion coming from, was it AFC? Oh, he fought in AMC Global a couple of times. Yeah. But yeah, what do you make of him? What do you make of this young kid?
I think you've kind of just nailed it there. You know, he's 23 years old, 9-0, and he's got by the looks of it, got a country behind him. Not just, you know, he hasn't just got, you know, the odd, you know, I've got, you know, all of Manchester, all of the UK, all of Birmingham really want me to win this, or, you know, for example, all of Louisiana all want Brendan Allen to win. I'm sure everyone's seen the Dana White sort of clip that he's maybe reposted or retweeted onto his socials of
that's insane.
And like you say, 3:00 in the morning for someone that's, let's be honest, he was put into this fight possibly to lose. Rafael Alves is a talent. You know, he's got a win over Mark Jacasey. He's got a win over. He went the distance with Ismagulov.
Mm-hmm. That's a
he
tough
had
fight.
That tough fight with Drew Dober where he rocked Drew Dober.
Yep.
And then Aliev just did it. He just did it. You know, he just went in there and just dealt with Alves, in my opinion. And in a fight, like I say, which I actually thought he'd lose. I had Alves, you know, I had Alves winning it. I thought he would just be, you know, he's got 32 fights now, Alves. That was Aliev's 9th fight.
Yeah.
It's worlds apart, really, as far as experience is concerned. And I'm here for it. I think you need to, you know, the UFC need to build this guy properly.
Yes.
They don't want to give him the Sean O'Malley treatment, but they also don't want to give him the, I can't remember the guy's name who just got tough fight after tough fight after tough fight. Someone like Terrion Ware, who just got really, really tough fight, you know, and then was cut from the UFC.
Sure.
They need to, they don't want to give him the Paddy Pimblets where you fight a load of guys. You know, Rafael Alves is fringe top 20, top 25 guys.
Yeah. Let's
not drop below that now. You know, Rafael Alves, as per Tapology, I mean, he's ranked number 41. I thought he might be higher than that. But, you know, this is globally. So, you know, put him in there with a...
It's also maybe the best division in MMA, like in the top 100. Exactly. There's great fighters in the top 200, right?
Exactly. You know, let's put Aliev in there with someone like a Ludwig Klein that we all, you know, I know he's booked against Jai Herbert at the end of next month, but you know, he's a well-renowned name. Let's put him in there with a Mark Jacasey coming off a loss.
And he's only 23. He's only 23. Like, this is
we've got
insane,
time to build this guy. Yeah. And it does strike me as the kind of guy that even a loss, when you've got that kind of backing from a country, even a loss won't harm him too much. But it's like you say, it's exciting times, really, really exciting times for a country that, I'll be honest, isn't known for its MMA talents. You know, I think Valentina's trained in and around there, but isn't, you know, a native of there. So, you know, it's exciting times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like MMA is such an international sport. It's great to bring Tajikistan into it, but it's also very funny for people like us because we like MMA has influenced our view of the world so much that, like, I couldn't tell you very much about Russia, but I know everything about Dagestan. And now Tajikistan is the next one for us. We're like, our friends are going to bring it up one day and we're like, oh yeah, suddenly I know everything. I'm a Tajikistan expert. I don't know much about Brazil, but this one era in the early 2000s, there was these 2 gyms in Brazil. They were going to, I could tell you everything about the history of like fighting in Thailand. Don't know anything else about Thailand, but yeah, Tajikistan, hopefully they do well. Only have won like a handful of Olympics medals at the Olympics in their entire career, mostly for like wrestling and judo. But like, this is why they are going full sell behind their man. They're going to fully support him in what he does next. And it's amazing to see. Yeah, they've got 1 gold in the history of the entire Olympics. So like, if this guy makes it ranked in the UFC, this is it. This is a big deal for them.
Exactly. And, you know, you have cards built, and I'm not suggesting that next year we'll be in Kazakhstan.
Let's do it. No, I am.
I mean, I'm keen for it, but I can't see it happening. But then, we go over to Bellator, where you've got.
Let's do it. Okay, we'll jump over.
90% of the fighters on there are SPG fighters, John Kavanagh fighters, Irish fighters. John Kavanagh, I think, was in the corner for. It's got to be. I'm talking 90% of these fights.
Yep.
Aside from the main and the co-main, does Pedro Carvalho train from SPG? Yeah, Pedro Carvalho trains out of SPG, despite the fact he's Portuguese. 90% of the fights John Kavanagh was in the corner for. 18 fight card.
Yeah.
Bellator, come on, Bellator.
This is an SBGI versus the world, but honestly, the main event was quite good. I mean, Amosov, he was just on the front lines of the Ukrainian-Russian war, and he flies over. Like, there's a really interesting story where his belt was left in a house that was bombed, and he had to go retrieve it. Like, this guy deserves a movie about his life. Undefeated combat sambo champion. Now he's an undefeated MMA fight. Like, this guy's awesome. He's the coolest guy. He's an action hero fighting in our sport.
And he's 27-0.
Insane.
And he's just doing what he needs to. I really do think that he is a phenomenal talent. Now,
yes.
refuse to believe that he trained for this fight as much or as in detail as he's put as much effort and as much passion into this fight than he has his previous fights.
I know.
I refuse to believe that because of all the outside factors. And yet he made Logan Storley look like he didn't deserve to be in there with him. It was a phenomenal performance. And I think the performance in the cage kind of is what it is. Really good performance. But I think the journey to the octagon should be more well respect. He could have gone in there and knocked him out in the first round. He went in there 25 hard minutes. And I think that needs to be, that is without a doubt, a solid performance. But you've got to look sort of, like I say, at his journey to the octagon to really appreciate how good a performance that was. The outside factors make the performance even better than the performance itself maybe showed off to the public.
Oh my God, yeah! Fighting in a war is among the most stressful things that a human being could ever do. And like seeing his hometown and the home that he grew up in, he saw that place being bombed, and now he's going to go fight in a Bellator cage in Ireland. Like, that's an absolutely insane story. Like, this man is I don't know. There's nothing that I can say that actually does him justice with how interesting and of an amazing journey he's had. He holds the unified Bellator welterweight crown. How would he do in the UFC? You think he takes? He out wrestles Leon Edwards, doesn't he? Does he out wrestle someone like Kamaru? Like, at this point, unified, we should probably rank him in the top 3 in the world.
Well, for sure. I saw a tweet from Michael Fidel. Obviously works for Bellator, and I'll just read it verbatim. It's call me biased, but Bellator can now arguably lay claim to promoting the best fighter in the world at 170, 185, and 205. Possibly.
You could absolutely make the argument. 205? Probably. Maybe the other two.
Exactly. Johnny Eblin is, 13-0? How does he do against the striking? I mean, Nemkov, for me, beats Jamal Hill.
I know. I agree.
As a tough fight against Jiri, but he beats Jamal Hill, and that's who the champion is at the moment.
Yep. I agree.
He can out-wrestle Alex Pereira.
I know.
He can probably out-wrestle Israel Adesanya. These are questions to be had. And Amosov, like I say, I think he out-wrestles Leon.
Yeah,
and maybe struggles a little bit further down the rankings. But the fact that we're even having this conversation, even at lightweight, Usman Nurmagomedov, I would love to see a Nurmagomedov Makhachev fight. Of course, we're never going to get it, but that's a conversation to be had. Patricio Pitbull, how does he do against Volkanovski? I think Sergio Pettis being the champion, but not quite being the champion. Ruffian Stotts and Patchy Mix, going for the belt in a few weeks.
Great division is a great division there.
It's a great division, but I don't think it's quite there. And then, I mean, for me, the heavyweight division is Ryan Bader.
Okay. It's fun.
Women's flyweight, Liz Carmouche is the champion. Yeah, you've got, with the greatest respect, you've got girls that 11 and 6 in the top 10, and then the featherweight division, there's only 6 of them. The number 3 girl fought an unranked girl at the weekend. Sinead Kavanagh fought Jana Harding and went to a decision with her. Realistically, she should be finishing Harding. Harding, for me, I know she's she's a phenomenal talent.
Yeah.
But it's a struggle for me to see why she got given that opportunity. She's coming off the back of 2 straight losses.
Is it
I
a
don't
struggle?
quite. Yeah, I don't quite. And
say it. You know why? You know why?
Because she beat.
She's kind of nice looking. You know why?
I thought it was because she beat Sinead Kavanagh by a cut last time. But I mean, even, going as far down as Leah McCourt as.
Man, they were really pushing Leah. Seeing her fight is the thing that puts you out of it.
I mean, I don't know if you saw Cyborg's tweet this week to say, like, if Leah McCourt wins her next fight, I can't quite remember who she's fighting. I'll quickly check now. If she wins her next fight, she deserves a title shot. Of course, Cyborg's going to say that.
I know.
Okay, so Leah McCourt's fighting Kat Zingano at the end of next month. Maybe she does deserve a shot. Of course, Cyborg's going to say that because Cyborg looks at Leah McCourt like food. No disrespect to Leah, but her striking's amateurish.
I know.
A ground
cardio is like
Cyborg eats her. For breakfast. Cyborg doesn't train for that fight and wins. Of course, she's going to be saying, "I think Leah McCourt might be the next contender. She's a real threat to my belt." No, she's not. No disrespect, but she's not.
Is she? But Leah McCourt, is she marketable?
Yes.
Extremely.
She's the face of sort of women's Bellator at the moment, really. Even though she's not the champion, she's constantly on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Especially, she's Irish, so she's got all of Northern Ireland behind her.
Mm.
She trains, I believe she trains in Liverpool at Next Gen with Molly McCann and the team over there. So, and
she's got a marketable story. Like it's funny, she talks about doing like parent teacher meetings at school, and she's showing up with black eyes and stuff like that. So those are great crossover things. It's just her talent.
Yeah, realistically, she's a Bellator fighter.
Okay.
Which, no disrespect, kind of tells everything you need to know about Bellator. But I thought this card was a lot better than the UFC card this weekend.
This rant was actually supposed to be pro Bellator, of like, they might have the best champions, and we're like, man, Leah McCourt sucks. Like, where did we go here? But yeah, Bellator also, like, they might have in some of these divisions, they might beat the UFC champions, and they're having trouble to promote it. And like, this card was way better than the UFC card, and it did not have much pop behind it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got Jeremy Kennedy on this card, who 3-1 in the UFC, with his only loss coming against Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah,
I mean,
good fighter.
I don't know if he was. I'm not sure of his story, whether he was cut or whether he was just really. He fought out his contract, but he's lost to Alexander Volkanovski and he's no longer fighting in the UFC. So he goes over to Bellator and he's dominating people in Bellator. He lost to Adam Boric, so of 16 other people, I think, or 18 other people, or however many wins he's got now. And then now he's on a 3-fight win streak. Emmanuel Sanchez, obviously Pedro Carvalho, and then before that, Aaron Pico with the shoulder injury when they tried to shake his shoulder back in place, which was ridiculous.
Do that.
But realistically, we're looking at Amosov, world-class performance. Jeremy Kennedy, complete shutout performance over Pedro Carvalho. Bryce Logan with the knockout of Peter Queeley from that elbow in the clinch was savage. And I mean, I did see someone, and I don't like to say it because I do like Peter Queeley, but
I know.
I saw a tweet that said, Peter Queeley's just lost to a guy who's 0-3 in his Bellator. In his last 3 Bellator fights. But what about that walkout, though?
What about that walkout, man?
I kind of agree Bryce Logan was in there to be knocked out or to be defeated by Peter Queeley, and it didn't quite come off. Queeley now, 38, 39 maybe? Yeah, 38. He's 0-3 in his last 3 with 2 finishes. He took a lot of damage against Patricky Pitbull when he did beat him. before he lost to him, and then against Ryan Scope, obviously he had that comeback victory when Ryan Scope kind of gassed out.
Yep.
That walkout though, that's what we kind of keep on swinging back to. The walkout for Creedy's legendary, but it's that got to do it in the ring, unfortunately, and he hasn't in recent times.
Yeah, no, it was a good event overall, and Peter Queally, they're going to keep putting him in Ireland, and that's great. I'd honestly love to see it. Keep the sport moving, keep the sport growing. The UFC hasn't done the area any favors in recent years, so Bellator should put their foot on the gas pedal and promote as much as they can there. I want to see it, and I want more of it. Should we move forward to the other stuff? We got. Did you catch the One Championship Fight Night 7?
I caught highlights of One Championship Fight Night 7.
Banger
and there
again.
were some highlights.
Oh boy, yeah, the top 2 fights were incredible. I'll start with the one that I do actually want to talk about quite a bit. Tawanchai defended his 1 featherweight Muay Thai world title, 49 seconds via leg kick. 23 years old. This kid is a prodigy. It's just a matter of like his weight class in Muay Thai. He's on the little bit of a larger side, so it's harder to find opponents. So he ends up fighting a bunch of people from outside of Thailand, which is fine. But yeah, this is the 38-year-old Russian veteran, hard-hitting knockout machine Jamal, and finished him in 49 seconds. Leg kick. What the that's insane. Frazer, what do you make of this?
I mean, I've always said, and I don't think it's any secret to you or anyone that's been a long time listener, I love a leg kick.
Yes.
I love a leg kick. A low leg kick, take out the calf, send the nerves not quite working. This one I didn't like. This one was a tough watch.
I know.
And it's not because I don't like the it just looked like it hurt. I know that sounds ridiculous because we are talking about the sport of cage fighting, MMA, but this one just looked like, it's not like, a knockout punch that lands on the chin and it just shuts the brain off. This was, I have been kicked so hard in the leg that I just don't want to be stood up anymore. Phenomenal finish.
Yeah.
And I mean, was it a phenomenal finish or was it just really good technique to hit the leg just at the right point? To which his opponent, the referee almost stepped in straight away to call the fight off because he saw, like you say, he saw Jamal kind of just completely dropping weight and the referee was already in there. Bang. This isn't going to go any further.
Yeah. Insane. Oh, I'm so impressed. Tawanchai, he started at 9 years old training in Muay Thai. I think he made his Lumpini Stadium debut at the age of 14. So he's already 15 years into his combat sports career. But yeah, he's got it all. He's got speed, he's got power, he's got perfect technique. It's honestly a matter of finding him an opponent who can actually challenge him. This guy's a veteran of many, many dozens of fights, and you made him quit. That's insane. This guy is one to watch. Keep your eye on him. Hopefully talking to him later this week as well. They've been a little bit dodgy with trying to set up an interview, but hopefully we get him at some point in the future. Fabricio Andrade, the wonder kid from Brazil, outpointed John Lineker. TKO, corner stoppage. He accomplished his dream. He's crying when he gets the belt. What a great scene it was. And he looked good doing it as well. Fabricio Andrade is definitely one to keep an eye on. You got some highlights. What'd you think of this kid?
Yeah, after I think, I picked Andrade before the fight to get the victory over John Lineker.
Yeah.
And I think that was based on their previous fight back in
end of last year.
October, November. Yeah, end of last year.
Yeah.
He was winning that fight until he obviously, the low blow.
Yes.
I don't want to say is what it is because it was a legitimate accidental groin strike.
Yeah.
But he was winning that fight, and I think that fight came as that strike came as quite a blessing to Lineker. And I think, did Lineker's 46 fight career just kind of catch up on him?
I know. He just had a kid last month as well. He had his his 5th child. How much mentally was he with it? Like you said, wear and tear on the body. He's been around for a while.
Wear and tear on the body. I'm just looking down his record now from back in 2012 missed weight, 2013 missed weight twice, 2015 missed weight, 2016 missed weight.
I know. 2022 missed weight
for the last fight for his last fight. Sorry. So and what that suggests to me is that he's having these tough weight cuts.
Yeah.
And now he's gone up 10 pounds and he still missed weight last time.
Yeah.
the power's obviously transferred to when he's gone up in weight. He's got the 3 knockouts in since his transition over to 1. But I think Fabricio Andrade, he's 25 years 25, old.
Yeah. He's good.
I think and I think fighting a fellow Brazilian is going to just do him all the favors in the world, because it's kind of I see this as like a changing of the guard. Is you've got John Lineker's Brazilian fans.
Yep.
They might just now transition to be Andrade, Fabricio Andrade, Brazilian fans. Hopefully, because you've seen the guy. He's 7 years younger than the guy that you're following, and he's now the champion. He's made your guy essentially quit on his stool.
Yes.
Or, the corner's pulled him out. It is what it is. But transitioning from John Lineker fans to Andrade fans, I think he could be a real star. And he's got the skill to be a real star.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's one of those where you don't want to see John Lineker lose, because he's one of the nice guys of the sport, despite the fact that he's a savage guy, but he's one of the nice guys of the sport. But these things happen.
Yeah, that's the thing, and like these things happened. You run into a better fighter who's just some phenom wonder kid, like 25 years old, like that. It's an incredibly impressive thing. But yeah, John Lineker, even before MMA, he was a bricklayer. So how much wear and tear is on? How many miles on that body at this point? But let's move forward. One championship on Friday. Also put together the One Friday Fight 6 series. Now, I didn't talk about it very much before, just because it's very in the weeds stuff. It's mainly their event at Lumpini Stadium, where they do weekly, mainly Muay Thai fights to really help the community. So Thailand, for the last 10 years, has actually really struggled with Muay Thai because locals aren't going out to the stadiums anymore. The only people who are showing up to Rajmanturn and Lumpini are like gamblers. So it's got a bad reputation over the last few years. So they require outside sponsors to keep the event running. Like Rajmanturn has sponsorships from Pet Yindi, which is the big gym there. And then Lumpini needed a sponsorship from One Championship to keep things running. So it's mainly local fighters. So I didn't cover it too much, or I didn't talk about it on the air, but I watched every single event. Their Lumpini events are better than their big card events. These are so good. Like they're giving away $10,000 bonuses, and these people are fighting for it. Their people are absolutely going ham over these bonuses. But yeah, this is some of the most world-class Muay Thai in the world. You get to see some up-and-coming rising stars, and it's incredible stuff. But yeah, I don't have much to add. Rajmanturn had an event. It wasn't a major one, but the Nadaka got a head kick knockout. He crow-copped a guy, and it was very good. You can check out the highlight reel. Check out Nadaka. It'll show up somewhere. What else did you watch the weekend? What else did you watch? That's everything I did this weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I saw Todd Duffy
get pummeled. We expected it.
Yeah. We're not surprised. He's been out of the ring for however long, and Phil DeFries has been in there competing. But KSW continuing to put on these massive events. Czech Republic this time.
Yep.
I think they've announced an event for Rome later on in the year, or massive events. And there's a reason that they're doing these, because they've got the following. They weren't always a huge promotion, but they built it up and built it up and built it up and built it up, and now they're putting on these huge events. They're putting on more big sort of stadium events than anybody, than the UFC, than Bellator, than PFL are. So
they're doing another stadium later this year in Poland. Like they are arguably bigger than the UFC in Poland. Like they're massive.
Oh, with that, I'd strongly, and you're getting some good guys and girls come over. Karolina Kovacevic, Joanna Blachowicz. These guys are coming over from KSW. Stoldic going over to One. These guys are coming over with a huge following already before they even join the UFC.
Yeah,
and they're bringing the fans over to the UFC from Poland. And I'd be surprised if we don't see a Polish MMA event within the next 2 to 3 years. Polish UFC event within the next 2 to 3 years, because it's a missed opportunity. If not,
it's overdue. It's time. Like the sport has grown so much.
I think the last time we saw the UFC in Poland was Darren Till knocking out Donald Cerrone in Gdansk in 20. I can't even remember when that. I mean, it's one of the last wins that Darren Till got before he got the title shot.
So it was a long time ago.
Exactly. He suffered. If you look at the career trajectory of Darren Till since that fight, just looking, that was 2017. That's the last time I can remember them being in being in Poland. For context, Karolina Kovacevic versus Jodie Escobar was the co-main event.
Yep.
Jan Blachowicz was on the card. Josh Emmett was the curtain jerker. Josh Emmett, who just fought for a title 2 weeks ago, was the first fight on the card.
It's
Lena
time to go
Landsberg
back.
suffered a loss on that card. She retired last week. Like you say, it's time to go back to Poland. Artem Lobov is on the card. Get him back in the UFC.
That's right. But yeah, there's been such a void in mainland or in Europe that the UFC has left. And that's why Bellator has done so well in the Isles. That's why KSW has done so well in Poland. That's why Octagon is doing really, really well in the Czech Republic, because there is a massive void where the fans want this kind of stuff and no one's filling it. The UFC hasn't even been like, they did 2 shows in London over the last 5 years, and that's kind of it for the entirety of Europe, right?
Yeah.
They did Paris. They did Paris, and that's it.
Paris, but that was
That was inaugural.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of in my opinion, they kind of had to do Paris because Bellator were doing Paris. Bellator was under the Paris card, and you got Ares in Paris that are really taking. I wouldn't say taking precedent, but they're the French market at the moment.
There's a want for it. There's clearly a want, and the UFC just can't book it there, which is fine.
Exactly. Well, like I say, let's hope within the next 2 to 3 years, even if it's not Poland, if it's a European country, they've been to Copenhagen, they've been to Glasgow, they've been to Liverpool, they've been to obviously they've been to Nottingham, been to Birmingham. It's now arguably more of a call for them to go to Birmingham than ever before. But they'll go to the O2 in London because it's the capital, blah, blah, blah. But, it is what it is. UFC.
Anyway, let's wrap it up. And then we're coming back later this week. We're going to do into the big UFC 285 breakdown. Frazer, what else you got going on this week? What's the next?
Just excited for this breakdown. I've been watching a lot of tape of John Jones, not so much tape of Cyril Gane, because there isn't a lot of tape of Cyril Gane. He's only had, 12 professional MMA fights against nobody like John Jones. So, it's going to be an exciting fight. I'm looking forward to breaking it down later on in the week. I put an article out there about Tommy Fury and Jake Paul this morning, and I've got an article of whether we actually respect Ronda Rousey for, I think it was 10 years ago last week that the women's division and Ronda Rousey kind of came into the sport, and when she fought Liz Carmouche in that UFC 157, I think it was.
What a great time that was. I love the
whether
Rousey
we actually
era.
respect Ronda Rousey, because she's almost turned into a little bit of a meme in recent times of she getting knocked out by Holly Holm, getting knocked out by Amanda Nunes, but let's not forget that she was untouchable when she was on the rise. So I've got an article about that. It makes for quite an interesting read.
Here's the thing. I know we're running out of time here, but I talk about Ronda Rousey quite a bit because it is insane that before her, the UFC said no women. The Rousey effect came in, and now we have stuff like women will headline in Tokyo and women will headline in Thailand, where it was never before. Like, the Rousey effect is amazing. And honestly, I think she deserves respect for doing that. Like, women can now fight anywhere in the world as a headliner. We're talking about women fighting in Dubai. This is because of Ronda Rousey, right?
Exactly. And let's be honest, she had a rise like few others.
Yes.
She was killing girls on the way up, and rightfully so, because she was such a good talent. And like I say, the piece kind of looks into her career and then looks into a few statistics comparing her to the likes of John Jones, Conor McGregor, and Khabib, who didn't start their careers off in the UFC as well as Ronda. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'll put the links down below for your piece today, and everything. All the links will be down below. But we'll see you folks later this week. Frazer, thanks so much for your time, sir.
See you later in the week.